We're going to continue our media availabilities this morning with Danica Patrick, driver of the number 10 GoDaddy Chevrolet. Obviously a solid run for you in Daytona, and we come to Phoenix this weekend. Talk a little bit about your expectations here at Phoenix.
It was nice to come here at the end of the season and race in the Cup race. It was also nice to have Tony Gibson as my crew chief. I feel like it'll give us a good baseline of where we need to start setup-wise for the weekend, so we can kind of pick up where we left off, which I feel like we were pretty decent at the end of the race. So, is qualifying on the pole and leading laps what we should be thinking happens based on last weekend? No, I think we need to, I need to keep realistic expectations, and I think everybody else does too. Daytona is a very unique place, and this is kind of where the bulk of the season really starts. So, things like being able to get up to speed quickly and knowing what I want in the car and how to push it to its limit and what its limit is are things that are going to be, begin to be tested now, and that's something that you don't really face at Daytona.
All right, we're going to go ahead and open it up for questioning. If you can please state your name and affiliation and keep your hands raised often so I can see you. Okay, we're going to start with
Lewis. We need to build a bigger media room,
Marty,
I feel like.
And then we'll come up front here. Go ahead.
Lewis Frank Auto Week. I guess it's good I'm 6 feet. Danica, can I take you back to Indianapolis in 05 versus after the race here in Daytona? Obvious disappointment for what might have been, but when you look at how you've improved as a driver in both series, I mean, what do you take away from your progress?
Well, they really are very similar in a sense with my first Indy 500 and my first, it wasn't my first Daytona 500, but my first year full-time in the series with the whole, pole position potential and with leading in the race and being fast and being a contender and then kind of losing it a little bit at the very, very end. Very similar. I feel like nowadays, having the experience that I had in IndyCar and understanding how media works and how what it's like to be busy and do a lot of interviews and a lot of things outside of the car, and also building a great team that helps me be able to manage and tolerate all that is very different than what it was back in 2005. So. I kind of feel like it's another weekend now, and last weekend was what it was, but we're moving on, and maybe perhaps in 2005 it was kind of a little bit of an ongoing excitement level and hope for more, but I think I'm a little more mature now to know that these things come, they go, and we're going to have great weekends like maybe last weekend, and we're going to have bad ones, and I don't know where they're going to pop up, but I don't doubt they will, and I just feel more mature to be able to handle all of it.
All right, Marty?
Marty Smith, ESPN. Danica, good morning. There are 13 names on the list of drivers that have led the Indianapolis 500 and the Daytona 500. They are famous names. Foyt, Unser, on and on. Danica Patrick is now on that list. What does it mean to you to be on that list?
When I heard that statistic, Joe is a wealth of knowledge and knew that when we were walking back from pit lane after the race. And he then sent me more information about who'd led more than 5 laps and things like that. So, I got more information beyond that. But he's going to have to become one of the famous, like one of the historians, I feel, of IndyCar and of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and maybe of NASCAR as well. But anyway, okay, enough about Joe. But it's a statistic like that personally I felt was the biggest one that from the weekend, to look at the list of names and to fall under them. And while I'm honored to be a first woman to do something, those are great. You can't take those away. A first is always wonderful, but to fall into a historical statistic that is small, that's a small group along with other drivers, and have it not be about being a male or a female, that's something that I aspire to as a driver. I hope that when I am done racing that people remember me as a great driver, and if they remember me as a great girl driver, that's fine too, but I hope they remember me as a great driver and a list of others. So I feel like that's one of those statistics that's just genderless, and that's pretty neat for me.
All right, we're going to go to Bob, and then Claire, and then come up front to Stan.
Bob Hocker, Sporting News. I know this will be your second time in the Cup car here. I'm curious, in the Nationwide cars, did you notice the tracks changing a lot from the first time you were there to the second time that you were there to the third time you were there, and how much should we expect that, because you ran well here in November, that you should run well here this weekend?
Happy birthday. Nate, where are you? I believe it's your birthday too, is this correct? How old are you, 22, 23? I won't sing because there's too many cameras. Anyway, what the heck was your question again? 12th, that's right. So progression from one to the first to the second to the third time that I've been somewhere. Now, I would say that tended to happen wherever I went. I felt like it was a little bit more about it being a new track to me more than anything. But first to the second time is still going to show, I feel like, a sort of steeper incline in performance than perhaps the sixth to the seventh time. But Phoenix was one of those places that, man, even in the Nationwide car, I just couldn't get the hang of it. I came here many times and continued to kind of suck. And I feel like at the end of the year was more of a breakthrough in the Nationwide car, and then also in the Cup car. It was a good weekend, the best weekend I had in a Cup car, and I really think that that's kind of what led me to want to do more double duty weekends this year. Haven't been able to work that out yet, but I think that driving both of the cars really just keeps you sharp, and I feel like when I practiced the Cup car, it helped in the Nationwide car, and then when I'd done the Nationwide race, I really felt like it led to helping in the Cup race. So I think that was probably also a big contributor to why last year at the end of the year it was a good weekend.
All right, Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. What was your debrief like with Tony after the 500? I heard you were kind of kicking yourself about what moves you could have made, and
yeah.
Tony gave you guidance. And then what is he telling you about Phoenix, guidance-wise?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I was disappointed at the end of the race that I just didn't have a better grasp as to what I needed to do to shoot for a better finish than where I was. Although I was, if they'd have just thrown that yellow, third. But you got to finish the race, and I understand that's good for the sport. When we finish under green, it makes it exciting. It really helped teach me. I feel like what happens at the end of the race and how to set them up. Junior's really good at those big speedway races and knowing how to set things up. But I just felt like I was just frustrated that I didn't have a better plan. And so, Tony told me that he really thought that, he said, I really feel like what you had more to lose in your position than you had to gain by trying something. So I think that you did the right thing. And so that made me feel better a little bit. Now, was still mad that I went from third to eighth on the last lap? No, I mean, I'm still disappointed in it. But to have somebody like Tony Stewart say something to me like that was very kind, and it put it in perspective. He also then told Jimmy he did a nice job, and so we had a little conversation, and I had said to him, he told me I did a nice job too, and I said that I wish I had a better plan, but thank you, and I have a lot to learn. And he said that the 2 wins that he had, he didn't have a plan, and sometimes you just have to take it on the fly and work with what happens in the moment. And then he very kindly later that day, at the end of the day, said he'd seen the end of the race, and said that in his opinion, the only thing I could have done was back up to Junior when he backed up. But as far as what happened on the back straight when Junior went low, in his opinion, he thought I did the right thing. So to have somebody like Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson tell me that on some level I made good decisions out there at the very end was a really nice thing for them to say, and it makes me feel a little bit better. I still feel like I want to have a better plan in the future, but in that moment that I had made some good decisions, so it's appreciated. Tony, about Phoenix. Well, we had our competition meeting after the race, and we had all just kind of talked about what we were thinking going into Phoenix, and the track and what issues we had from the year before. So I feel like collaboratively we all kind of had similar feelings, and it's always nice when we have the same opinion on what is about to happen the next weekend, and based on what we felt the year before. So hopefully we really just want to be better in qualifying. I mean, that's my personal goal for the weekend, is to be able to improve from last year on the qualifying and have a better run and feel good about it, instead of being sideways in 3 and 4 and not qualifying very well. So that's what I'll be working towards in this one session we have.
All right, we're going to go up front to Stan and then Caravello.
Danica, Stan Creekmore with RPMTonight.com. Based on the statement you made to open this and the answer that you just gave, compare, if you will, the importance of where you actually finish on Sunday versus how much you learn and grow on Friday, Saturday, and throughout the race on Sunday.
Huh?
Is it more important to learn and grow and get better than it is to finish, where you finish on Sunday? Which is more important to you?
Well, I feel like they both lead to good things. I mean, if you learn and grow, you're going to finish better. So, that learning curve is different for everyone, which is why it's difficult to say where I should be at a certain point in time, because you just don't know where and at what point in time an athlete or a driver something is going to click and make sense, and you figure something out and get more comfortable. So, I guess I would say that the most important thing overall, if you're to look in the big picture, is to learn and grow. Good races and good finishes can just happen, and sometimes you don't know why. Sometimes it's because of other people's misfortunes, your luck, which is a big part of the sport, but learning is something that's going to pay off over time far more than being lucky one weekend.
All right, go ahead.
David Carville, NASCAR.com. Danica, I want to think you mentioned on Media Tour about how you can let a tough speed week stick with you sometimes if you let it. Can you just talk about your mindset and your confidence coming out of Daytona this year compared to what you dealt with last year?
Completely different. It was a very tough year last year at Daytona. It had the high of qualifying on the pole in the nationwide race, to having an accident with my teammate in the race, and then falling out of the duel in the 500 at the worst possible times. So I was hoping, it's a nice reminder, I was hoping going into Daytona that it would be that I would do a good weekend in Daytona, and sure enough it was. And so I feel like last year maybe that frustration and exhaustion kind of spilled over into a couple of days of work during Phoenix week that I had to do to the weekend, and coming here again in the nationwide car for the 3rd or 4th time and being like 20th and just feeling really kind of bad about myself, and then storming off from all of you from pit lane and deciding that I didn't finish well enough to answer any questions. It's a different perspective. I feel just a little more mature. I feel like even if it would have been a bad weekend, I was more prepared to handle it. But at this point in time, understanding that it's a whole new race, completely different track, and this is when the real season starts, and maybe, I guess, coming away feeling a little bit more calm or humble, or kind of understanding the ebb and flow of racing. But I think that comes from just having a good team around me that helps me understand that, we're going to have good and bad weekends, and we're going to stick together no matter what happens.